Hi again, Mark here from Talking Bass. So, do you ever have any problems learning or memorizing songs? Do you ever find it hard to move fluently around the fretboard? How about scales, keys, and arpeggios? Is it hard to remember all of those patterns and all that theory stuff? Well, today I'm going to show you how to get over all those problems by addressing your approach to practice and learning. The key to all of this is your memory and how you can retain information, and you can improve all areas of your playing with a few simple tips and exercises. Okay, so let's say you're going to learn a song and one of the main riffs sounds something like this. So you might have to learn it by ear, you might have the tab, or somebody might have shown it to you on some random YouTube channel. It doesn't matter. You're looking to memorize that line. So how do you do that? What process are you going through and what goes through your mind? Well, the first level of learning that many of you might have is this one, and let me know in the comments if this is your process. You look at the tab and you put your fingers on the appropriate frets, and then you listen to the riff to get the rhythm. Now, I suspect a lot of you do that. So you look at the number 3 on the E string, there it is, got it, there it is. Second fret on the A string, okay, well there's the second fret, got it. Then you realize you need to use the second finger for the first note because it doesn't work fretting both with the index finger. Then you see the open E string, and then you can come up through the previous 2 notes again. So you might listen to the riff again, and then you try to match what you're seeing on the tab to what you're hearing in the riff. And so it goes on. You might see a little shape here and there, like, this little diagonal pattern here between the second and first finger that moves around. But that's about it. The other common method might be learning the riff by ear, but that's still going to be the same processes in terms of the memorizing of those notes. You'll still be seeing random fret numbers on strings and the odd geometric pattern on the fretboard. The only difference is that you're hearing the notes and working them out rather than seeing them on a piece of paper. So I'm guessing that many of you will be using that method for learning riffs, and you might also use the same process for learning scales and the odd arpeggio here and there. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can speed up that process by massive orders of magnitude and improve your overall musicianship by just approaching things from a different perspective. Like I said before, the key to this is memory, and when it comes to music and bass playing, you want to work on laying a good foundation before developing with small but essential building blocks. So let's just go back to that riff. How else might we see it? Well, let's take me personally. If I learn that riff, what do I see? Well, to begin with, I see the key of G major, and I see 4 chords of G major, E minor, C major, and D major. I see those chords as 1, 6, 4, and 5 in the key. I see an outline of those chord tones, so we've got root and third for the G, full triad for the E minor, root and third for the C major, and a full arpeggio for the D major, with those last 2 notes enclosing that tonic G to come back round. I see the notes, G and B, E, G and B, C and E, D and F sharp and A. I would see the notes and the rhythms on the sheet music there and the notes under my fingers as I play. I also see the fret numbers as they correspond to those notes, but I see the notes first and foremost. The frets are just a consequence of that. Beyond that, I also see the geometric patterns on the fretboard. I know that that major third pattern there. I know the minor triad shape. I know that major triad from that root looking down. So that's quite a bit of information to draw from a few notes in a riff, but all of that info will naturally appear to me when I play that riff. I'm not analysing it at all. It's just information that's presented there for all to see. You just have to understand what you're looking at. Now, you might be thinking, why is this stuff important? Why do you have to know that it's chords 1, 6, 4, and 5? Why do you have to know, the intervals and chord tones? Why can't you just learn those fret numbers? Well, you can. You don't need to learn anything. But remember what I said about memory and building that foundation. It's all building blocks. It's this information that's going to help you progress and learn anything on the instrument way quicker. You're building a musical vocabulary. You need to develop familiarity and recognition of more and more musical stuff. Imagine learning a speech for an event. My native language is English. What will be easier, learning a speech in English or a speech in a language that I don't speak, like Mandarin? Obviously, it'll be easier in English. I can understand what I'm reading. The words mean something. They've got context. I'll be reading sentences and phrases that mean something rather than just individual words that appear to mean nothing. When you learn a piece of music, it's the same thing. You can learn it as a sequence of unrelated notes with no context, or you can learn it as a familiar set of musical phrases that you understand with a firm connection to the harmony and piece as a whole. So, how do you go about doing this? Well, here I'm going to list 5 things that you need to work on that will very quickly improve your musical memory and speed of learning. They're all things that you've probably heard of or studied before, but I'm going to give you a different perspective on learning them that you might not have considered. Remember, if you're enjoying this content and you want more, subscribe to the TalkingBass channel and click the bell. So, number 1, we have the fretboard. Learn the notes. This is going to give you a massive boost in your ability by providing a map of the bass terrain. Knowing the fret numbers is, okay for getting started, but numbers tell you nothing about the music itself. Even playing through a simple chord chart is pretty much impossible without understanding where the notes are. Learning those notes will improve your confidence and give you an organized musical map to work from as you develop. And how do you learn the notes on the neck? Well, obviously, the ultimate way is reading music. Learn to read music and you'll learn every note on the fretboard without even trying. Many bass players shun the ideas of reading for some weird reason, but I suspect it's often because it's not so easy to get started and always seems, a long, boring process, while you could just be learning your favorite riffs. Obviously, I can't teach you to read fluently here in one short YouTube lesson, but if you are interested, then I do have a huge reading course over at the TalkingBass website that takes you from absolute beginner through to advanced professional level in simple, easy steps, hence the name, Simple Steps to Sight Reading, so the link's in the description. Another good way to learn the notes on the neck is a simple exercise that goes like this. Take a note, let's say C, and find it on the E string and play it. So, where's a C? There's a C. Play it. It doesn't matter how long it takes to find it, how you have to work it out and play it. Don't use a metronome or anything like that. And then take another note, let's say F, and again find it on the E string and play it. So there's an F, and we play it. And you want to work through the whole circle of fourths on that E string. So that's going to be the notes C, F, then we've got B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, and we're back to C. If you don't know the circle of fourths, here's a really quick way to learn it. So, first of all, just think of C, F. That's the first 2 letters. So, circle of fourths. C, circle, F, fourths. C, F, okay? Then take the word bead, like a bead of sweat. B-E-A-D, okay? Then add a G on the end, which sounds random, but, just go with it. So, bead G, okay? That's all you need. Bead G. First time we have that as flats, second time natural notes. So B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and then B, E, A, D, G. So the whole of the circle of fourths, C, F, so circle of fourths, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G. And that's it. So back to the E string. So we had C and then we found the F. Then find the B flat. So where's the B flat? Okay, it's there. If you had a problem finding it, start again. So C, F, and then there's that B flat. Then we're on to the E flat. So find an E flat. Where is it? Okay, it's there. If it took you a while to find it, start again. So we've got the C, F, B flat, E flat. And you just work through like that. Start again each time. And eventually, you should be able to play it through the sequence. Once you've played through each note on the E string, just move through the other strings. So A string, D string, G string. If you can learn to play through the circle of fourths confidently on each string, then you'll be in way better bass shape than when you first started. Next up for number 2, we have scales and keys. Now, many of you will already know a major scale. You'll probably know a major scale as a fretboard pattern. Now, that's one way to learn it, and yes, learning the pattern will give you familiarity with some essential movements that you're likely to see in pieces. But there's more to a major scale than a fretboard pattern. Most importantly, the major scale is the basis for the major key, and by learning about keys and all of the harmony in there, you'll be able to unlock essential musical information that in turn is going to help with learning songs fast. Learning the set of chords within a major key will help with seeing recurring common chord progressions. Learning the sequence of triads in a key, triads are 3-note chords is a good start. Now, I won't waste time with teaching all the chord construction principles here. I've got those all over YouTube. You can check out the Chord Tone Essentials course at TalkingBass. I've got that all over the place. Let's just have a look at the set of triads within a major key by number. So, if we take something like a C major scale, if we number each note of that scale, we get the following scale degrees: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're back to 1. So in C major, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, and so on. And we can build a chord on each scale degree, and when we do this, we get the following sequence of chords. Chord 1 is major, chord 2 is minor, chord 3 is minor, chord 4 is major, chord 5 is major, chord 6 is minor, and chord 7 is diminished. So in the key of C major, we have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. To easily learn this set of chords, just think chords 1, 4, and 5 are major. They're the primary chords of the key. You'll see those most often. Then chords 2, 3, and 6 are minor. Chord 7 is the odd one out, which is diminished, and that's the least common of the chords. So just think 1, 4, and 5 is major. That's your start. The rest are minor, apart from the odd one out, chord 7, which is diminished. This set of chords is the same for all major keys. So in G major, the notes are different, but the set of chords is the same. So we're going to have G major, then we're going to have A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and we're back to G major. When you know that set of chords, you can start learning chord progressions by number. When you do this, you'll start to see very common sequences like 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 4, 5. Remember what I said about that original riff? It's a 1, 6, 4, 5. Instead of learning a set of chords, G, E minor, C, D, I just think 1, 6, 4, 5. And if I know the keys, I can immediately recognize or play it in any key. The more familiar you are with these common chord progressions, the easier it will be to learn songs because they're a part of your musical vocabulary. Obviously, the next step in perfecting this process is to learn your scales by note name. One easy way to do this is to perform spelling drills. And to do this, you simply recite the notes of the scale. So for C major, we recite the letters C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That's it. So you can do that over and over. Then you can work through the other scales in turn. I'd recommend working through the natural major scales first. So C major, then D major, E major, F major, etc. So for D major, it's going to be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, round and round. And then you can move on to the flat keys, and you can write these out first, or you can just download the spelling drill reference manual from TalkingBass. It's in the free members area, the ebook download page. Just log in or sign up for free if you're not already a member. Go to the practice room, and the PDF is all ready to download alongside the scale reference manual and the arpeggio reference manual. It's all totally free, so you can go check that out. Once you've memorized the scales, you can start to memorize individual chord progressions by note too. So try 1, 4, 5 progressions in every key, then maybe 1, 6, 4, 5, then maybe 2, 5, 1. And before you know it, you'll be turbocharging your musicianship. Now, I know that you can just, this is spelling drills, you could just sit there memorizing them. In reality, like for me and many others, this will be done over many years of just practicing playing through different chord progressions, especially through jazz standards where you'll see a lot of 2-5-1s, playing, exercises through those chord progressions, and you just get to know them, just naturally over time. But doing these spelling drills, you can really zone in and focus on learning them by note. Next up for number 3, we have intervals. Now, an interval is the distance between two notes, and we label those distances with names such as octave, or perfect fifth, or major third, and so on. Intervals are the building blocks of all music. Every musical line that you learn is made up of intervals. Think of intervals as the words of music. Each interval has a very recognizable look on the fretboard and a very distinctive sound. One interval that you probably all know quite well is the octave. It looks like this. You've got this little diagonal pattern. You can see this geometric shape. It sounds like this. There's a sound to it. And it's the notes C to C there. It's just, the note C to the next note C. So that's a very popular interval that you all probably already know. You might also know the perfect fifth. Again, a very distinctive look, kind of looks like the octave pattern, but on the next adjacent string down, so we've just got this little shape there, and again, has a very distinctive sound. Ba, ba, That's the perfect fifth. By learning all of your basic intervals, you'll start to see these intervals in every musical line that you learn, and because of the familiarity, you'll find learning bass lines a lot easier. So, as a basic primer, the major scale provides us with a basic set of intervals. Just number the notes of the scale like we did with the chords. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you can actually move to 8 with the intervals. And then we add a quality, which gives us the following set. We have perfect unison, the perfect first. Then we move to the major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and then the perfect octave. To memorize these, just think the first, fourth, and fifth are perfect. The rest are major. And always remember, intervals are a measurement from one note to the next. So C to C is that perfect first, or unison. C to F is a perfect fourth. So it's not just F is a perfect fourth, it's C to F is a perfect fourth. It's a measurement there. C to G is a perfect fifth. C to A is a major sixth, and so on. So remember what I said, the first, fourth, and fifth, those intervals that we saw there in the major scale, are perfect. Okay? The rest are major. So the major third, we've got the major second, major sixth, major seventh. But the fourth and fifth there, they're perfect. The perfect fourth and the perfect fifth. As practice, you can take any interval and simply play it up and down the fretboard. So for a perfect fifth interval, you might start on C there. So we've got the C to G. You can even just see it as that geometric shape there. And then move all the way up to the next C up there at the 15th fret, and then come down. So that's a perfect fifth interval. Third, major third there, and so on. There is a lot more to intervals than what I've covered here, so I'll link to a deeper lesson on the topic that I made earlier in the description below. So now back to the riff. When I play through those notes, I see that first set of notes, G and B, and instantly recognize it as a major third. It's no longer just two unrelated frets. It's a very familiar pattern that I've played a million times, and I can just think major third on G. Then we've got the major third there on the C as well. And when you combine this with knowing the chord progression, you can see how things start to take shape after a little practice. Now, as a little bonus extra, as well as learning the interval patterns for perfect, major, minor, and all the other intervals, I'd recommend learning the sound of them, which is great for ear training. And I'd also recommend learning them by note. Again, these are all listed in that spelling drill reference manual. Next, for number 4, we have chord tones. Chord tones are by far the most important area of music theory and harmony that you can learn as a bass player. Chord tones are simply the notes of a chord, and we play them melodically on bass as arpeggios. So here we have a C major chord. Here we have the arpeggio of that chord. So we just play one note at a time rather than all together. And those notes, C, E, and G, are the chord tones. So an arpeggio is simply an ordered line of chord tones. So there's a chord, there's an arpeggio, and each one are chord tones. Again, I'm not going to delve into the details of chord construction here. I've got many lessons here on YouTube dealing with arpeggios and chord tones. And the Chord Tone Essentials course over at Talking Bass is a deep dive into the subject, telling you absolutely everything that you'll ever need to learn about them. But let's just look at two basic arpeggios, the major and minor triads, as a simple primer. The major triad is built from a root note from which we build a major third and a perfect fifth. And this is where understanding intervals comes in handy. So for C major, we're going to have the root note of C, and then we add the major third above it, the E, and then we add the perfect fifth above it, which is G. So that's C, E, G. So we can play this with the common fingering here of third fret on the A string, second and fifth frets on the D string, and it's going to be the second finger, first finger, fourth finger. That's a C major triad. So when you see a C chord, you know, without any letters after it, C, that chord, C major, we know that we've got the notes there under our fingers of the C major triad as an arpeggio. The minor triad is the same as the major triad, but we have a minor third instead of a major third. So that's just one half step or a fret lower. So if we look at the major triad on C, that's C, E, and G. We take that E, that major third, and we drop it down a fret to the E flat. So that's going to be C, E flat, and G. So it's the minor triad. It's got that sad sound. And probably the most common way to play this, the common fingering, is going to be taking that C there with the first finger, and then we take that E flat there and move it onto the same string as the C. So we've got C, E flat there at the 6th fret of the A string, and then the G at the 5th fret of the D string. So first finger, 4th finger, 3rd finger. Okay, so that's the C minor triad. It's got that sad sound. Once you've learned these triads, you can try playing them up and down the neck. So, major triad, minor. Learn the patterns, learn the notes, and learn the sound, just as with the intervals. And once you have those basic triads down, again, you'll start to see them in every bass line that you play. Remember, these triads are basically a string of intervals. So by knowing your intervals and then working on your chord tones, you'll start to see a lot of recurring patterns in everything that you play. And again, it'll make learning so much easier. So back to the riff. Remember what I said? We've got the chords G major, E minor, C major, and D major. So if we just look at the arpeggios there, G major, E minor, C major, and E major. So you can actually hear the chord progression there. And now if we work through the notes again, okay, we've got that G and the B. That's the root and the third of that chord. So that's chord tones on the G major. Then when we move down to the E minor, we just come up through the arpeggio. E, G, and B. So we're just coming up from that open string. Then we're onto the C. We've got the C and the E. It's that root and third of the chord. And then we've got the D, F sharp, and A. That's actually the D major arpeggio over that D major chord, but I'm playing the root note on the top there, and I've put the 3rd and the 5th below so we can drop down. So instead of this, we've got to lead us back to the G. So it's just outlining the chord tones of that chord progression. And for number 5, we have our final tip, learn songs. Now, this might seem like a really obvious tip, but it's actually at the core of everything. Some players spend more time learning exercises than songs, but songs show you how all of these principles that I've outlined work in application. The more songs and riffs that you learn, the more recurring patterns that you're gonna see. Some you'll like more than others, but all of it is gonna burn its way into your memory. And when you learn songs, learn them analytically. Don't just learn the notes. Learn the chord progression. Look for chord tones. Look for scales. Look for intervals. Look for patterns in everything that you play. And as you do this, over time, you'll develop a wider ranging vocabulary. And things are gradually going to seem easier and easier. Okay, so like this video if it's helped, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Then check out all the links that I've mentioned in the description below. You can join up to the totally free TalkingBass membership and download all the free ebook PDFs. There's a bunch of forums, chat groups, a community of over 120,000 bass players, and over 600 free bass lessons in the lesson map. We've also got a ton of premium courses on everything from beginner bass to technique, harmony, reading, slapping, chording, walking, and everything in between. So check it out, and I'll see you next week.